This video is brought to you by Patreon supporter Sparks.
Shwoom. This video is brought to you by Patreon provider Sparks. Sparks was actually nice enough to buy my Gen 1 Huey UH-1 back a couple months ago, and he liked it so much that when he found a good deal on a Gen 2, he instantaneously picked it up. So Sparks, thank you very much for sending this in. He was also nice enough to send me the Gen 1 that I previously had reviewed on this channel. I'm going to be keeping that there just as a reminder to myself that I still have it. This unboxing is going to be focusing completely on the Gen 2. The review is going to be focusing primarily on the Gen 2, and I'm thinking about maybe doing a direct comparison video, side casing the Gen 1 and the Gen 2, respectively, to give you a better understanding of what the two differences are between these two. But right off the bat, with minimally playing with this for a little bit the other day, I can tell you the differences are definitely there. Without further ado, let's crack this box open and see what we've got. Typical Vortex fashion, you have a beautiful box on their AMG products. Pop this guy open. Nothing really crazy in here. There are a couple of key differences in the actual exterior components of this Gen 2 versus the Gen 1, but we'll be able to show that in person right now. Cleaning cloth more than likely, and then the red dot itself. Put the box out of the way. And here it is. I know these have been on the market for some time now, but I just haven't had the opportunity to get my hands on one. Thankfully, Sparks was nice enough to not only buy this, but send it in. And I have to say, I'm very thankful. Doing a quick comparison side by side between the Gen 1 versus the Gen 2, you can see this side really doesn't have that many differences. Same thing goes for the front. More or less roughly the same, but you could already get a sense of the tinting on the Gen 1 and maybe a slightly bigger window on the Gen 2. The biggest thing on this side is that the Gen 1 had the micro USB charging port, whereas the Gen 2, they did away with that. I had actually used that a couple of times when the battery had gotten a little bit low, and it did work, but I can see it as being something that you just have to worry about. You have to worry about moisture getting in there and getting broken, so I can understand why they did away with that. The biggest difference, however, is when we look at the back. Well, while we're here, the bottoms are basically identical. But the back, you can clearly see on the Gen 2, on the left-hand side, we have a dedicated night vision mode, whereas the Gen 1 did not have night vision. And while we're here to give you a better understanding of what you can expect when looking through these two, the Gen 2 definitely has a bigger window and much less tinting, which was a big complaint that I had on the Gen 1. It was just really, really deeply tinted, and you can see it right there. Whereas the Gen 2 still has a little bit of it, but is nowhere near as noticeable. Anyway, this thing feels absolutely fantastic in hand, and it does feel lighter than the Gen 1. Lock and clasp is the exact same. You have a nice safety over here, which locks in with that little claw. Disengage it, you slip it over your rail, and you cinch it down. If you need to make an adjustment, you got this adjuster screw right here. You can push this down, and you can either turn it with your fingers, like you could see me making the vain attempt to doing it, or you can get a flathead screwdriver in there, and you can turn it. It's a tremendously fantastic clasp. Also, with this one, you can see right there, made in the US with a UK reticle. The Gen 1 was the exact same, but with the Gen 1, if you haven't seen that review, watch it. The reticle was extremely grainy in that. That was my biggest complaint. I have an astigmatism, but there are many people that I go to the range with that don't have astigmatisms that still complain about the reticle on that. Hopefully this has fixed the tinting, which we already saw is mostly fixed, and then the reticle being less grainy. The be-all end-all, in my opinion, from what I've experienced so far, is EOTech. Granted, I haven't viewed all of the red dots of reflexes out there, but the EOTech is by far the sharpest and the clearest, followed probably pretty closely by the Holosuns. The Holosuns might have slightly, I'll say, off-shaped dots, like in the 512 and the 510 video that I had recently done, where under magnification you can clearly see it's not a center dot, it's a center rugby ball, but, close enough, I suppose. Anyway, let's see what else they changed up on the side. You have your battery compartment over here, which has this really nice cap. It is cabled in place, so you don't have to worry about losing it. And there is your battery. Nice surefire unit. I don't know if this is original with what came with it, but I know this does work, so I'm going to be sticking with it. Let me try my darndest not to cross-thread it. You can see there's a decent sized O-ring right in the front to have good weather sealing. And cinch it down nice and snug. fold that back over, and there you go. We'll work our way to the front, which, as you can see, there isn't much really going on. But this being a completely sealed unit, I already really like it. Let me pull in my Holosun 512 that I never gave back to Scott, because I like this so much because of the exact same reasons. And if you are watching, or if you're up to date with my videos, I tried the Holosun 509, but the fact that it had such curved glass really pulled me out of using it. See, Vortex are smart with this in where the glass is flat, both front and rear, and I can guarantee you that even just looking at it right now, there's almost no shift to anything. It also looks like the reticle got turned on when we installed the battery, but we'll touch on that very soon. So right off the bat, fantastic looking. Side controls are the exact same as they were on the Gen 1, and they feel and sound fantastic. You can't ask for much more. And if you're curious, one click is half MOA. So at 100 yards, one click is a half inch. At 50 yards, one click is a quarter inch. Keep that in mind. All right, so let's get to the business end of this thing, the back end. You have the two usual buttons that were on the Gen 1, both of which feel fantastic. They have a really good positive sound and detent to it. You know exactly when you're pressing it. And you have this dedicated night vision button, which if we're paying attention, we click it, hold a little bit, it's in night vision mode. If we press and hold it again for a little bit, it should automatically take it off. Now, let's say you put it in night vision mode and you're worried about accidentally pushing one of the other buttons to change the brightness and it accidentally kicks on. You don't have to worry about that. You have to make sure you press and hold the night vision button to have that work. So right off the bat, this thing is already feeling fantastic, and it's looking better too. But let's spend a little bit of time looking through it and conclude this unboxing.
The Gen 2 UH-1 from Vortex. I was super excited to hear about this when they first launched it about a year or so ago now, maybe even more, because I was wondering for two real big things. The first thing was the tinted glass, which I understand why most optics manufacturers do it, is to help see the reticle, but I absolutely hate it. And the second one was the graininess to the reticle. As you can see here, we have two things going for it. Number one, the glass is only slightly tinted, probably the least amount of tint that I've seen while still managing to be tinted. The second thing is the reticle, which so far seems to not be grainy like the Gen 1 was. So this is already better than the Gen 1 in every single facet at that point. Also with the Gen 1, if I remember correctly, the reticle used to flicker at lower power than high. I'm not going to get too much more into detail with this, but just to prove to you that the reticle is really freaking awesome in this thing, here it is magnified with the primary arms Gen 4 long eye relief. And with that, that's basically going to conclude this unboxing. A huge thank you to Sparks for sending this into review, because I am so excited to see that Vortex was smart enough to fix the two problems that they had with the Gen 1 Huey. Well, maybe three if you include the USB charger. And with that, thank you very much for watching. See you again next time. And a very huge thank you to all of my Patreon providers. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. If you'd like to help support the channel but don't want to join my Patreon, I completely understand. But you can still help support by using my affiliate links in the description below. Thanks again for watching.